later.
You know what, this
Remind
mic
me.
isn't on.
There's a button on the side if you want to slide it.
Yeah, or no, that. Forward.
Well, you'll just have to talk.
Oh, you know,
Is it on
the
the
mute, it's unlocked. You have to slide it forward. And then the other
Now
side.
slide.
There you go.
Thank you.
Very good.
Okay, we'll go ahead and call the August 9th regular Seward City Council meeting to order. Would you please lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First on the agenda is the roll call. Madam Clerk?
Tonight's roll call: Casagrande,
Here.
DeMoss,
Here.
Cease,
Here.
Osenga,
Here.
McClure,
Here.
Backlund,
Present.
Mayor Terry.
Yes.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is citizens' comments on any subject except those items scheduled for public hearing, which we do have one public hearing item. Those who have signed in will be given the first opportunity to speak. There is a time limit to 3 minutes per speaker, 36 minutes total time for this agenda item. And you just have to report if you're inside or outside city limits. You no longer have to give your address.
Oh.
So we will wait for, we have time, and the clerk will give us our first.
Okay. Madam Mayor, the first person signed in to speak is Tim McDonald.
Gentlemen of the council, mayor, Tim McDonald, inside city limits. Pleasure to be here. And first off, I want to thank the mayor for our 3-minute time limit. Several years ago, it was only 2 minutes, and I believe it was your initiative that raised that to 3, so that's good. I've been in Seward a long time, you know, off and on. I haven't lived here 100% of my life, but I was born and raised here. And I've seen a lot of the changes in the fisheries, and Resurrection Bay is part of the city of Seward. The city of Seward owns this end of the bay for 2 miles or whatever it is. So it is the city of Seward. And, you know, there's been a lot of mistakes made over the years. In, I think, 1968, 1970, Fish and Game, thinking that the red salmon competed with the silver salmon, they poisoned the run. We had a huge run. There was a natural run there. And for 2 years, they wrote known delay, opened up and tried to get them all. They got about 90% of them, but it ruined the run. And then now cooking and aquaculture comes in and seeds the run with 10 to 20 million smolt and fry every year, which we used to have naturally. So, you know, fish is really important for Seward, of course, and so is water quality. And, you know, I'm worried about the sewer lagoon out there, and I heard that our public works director is doing a presentation on that tonight, so I'm very heartened to hear that, because I've been studying it quite a bit. And, you know, human sewage is like 30% phosphorus or something, which is fertilizer, and so it creates algae eventually and stuff like that. And we're just settling it, adding chemicals to it, stirring it, putting clarified sewage in there. And you know, nobody's to blame. This is in excess of 100-year-old technology, but we have to look at it and find out what the problem is, because as everybody's learning, the world is not infinite. And, you know, we're tasked with Resurrection Bay and protecting it. It's one of the great natural wonders of the world, really, in several different ways. So I think we need to spend some money on testing it and look at it. And, you know, the future for renewable energy is promising. I mean, they look at sewage like it's coal or something. It puts out just about as much power. They recover it by sign gas. They do it with garbage dumps. They do it with sewage dumps. You know, they create gas, biogas, which is natural gas, you know, and it's much less polluting than petroleum and natural gas. You know, I think it's 80% less than petroleum when you burn it, and 52% less than natural gas. So, you know, there is chances to really do something good, and I think that we need to look at it and look at the future, where we're going to be 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road with this. Are we going to continue doing this for another 20 years? That's the question, you know. But I think we we need to test. Find out what the problem is. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, next signed in to speak is Pat Messmer.
Hi, Patrick Messmer, SPA President. I live outside city limits. On the agenda tonight is our union contract for 1 year. I'd like to encourage you guys, or the council, to vote for that. Coming out of this negotiation cycle, though, I do want to make some thanks. The new city manager, Jeanette's been awesome. Stephen's been great. Brooks has been great. Like, it's the first time in a negotiation I felt like I was listened to. It wasn't hostile. I mean, we obviously didn't get everything we wanted, but it was fair. So I'm very happy with how it went. The other thing I'd like to mention is part of the reason, the one thing we're asking for in here that costs some money is bringing the people up in wage based on their longevity. Part of the reason why people who've been on longer make more money is they have more training experience, and they've also shown loyalty to the city. This contract will do that and bring people to where they need to be. We've lost some people, and one in particular I can remember who worked in the water department, and he made just a little bit more than the new guys hired in under the new wage schedule, and he went and got hired by Eagle River, and he's making $15 an hour more. I know we can't offer everything, but if we could have, I think this will address it so we won't lose more to those, because a lot of people want to stay here, but they have to feed their families and take care of kids. The other thing I'd like to I guess I'll just reiterate, it was great working with the administration, and thank you guys for supporting us in the past. I know a lot of you have been along, who've supported us through the years. I really appreciate that as the new president. Thank you guys.
Next member.
Next signed in is Kurt Cronin.
Good evening. My name is Kurt Cronin. I'm from outside the city limits. I'm here representing Alaska Waste. Tonight on your agenda, there's a resolution to accept franchise for the collection of trash within the city limits of Seward. And I'd like to encourage you to approve that. Really for three reasons I want to talk to you about briefly tonight. Number one is if you partner with Alaska Waste, you're partnering with the safest company in the industry. Our trucks are the safest with the most technologically, all the newest technology we have in them, including we have drive cams in there that allow us to see what our drivers are doing while they're on the roads, and then when we see bad behaviors or things that we don't like, it allows us to actually show our drivers what the behavior was and be able to coach them through that. In addition to that, our trucks are regularly maintained. We have our own in-house mechanics that we maintain our trucks on a regular schedule. They're regularly inspected and maintained so that you can be confident that the trucks that you're sharing the roads with are the safest trucks possible. But the safest trucks in the world wouldn't do anything if it weren't for the safe drivers that we have. To become a driver for Alaska Waste, first of all, there's a very rigorous hiring process you go through, including drug testing, which is of course DOT mandated, but we go beyond that and have an even more stringent drug test that we offer to our prospective drivers. And then we also do a background check to make sure that they're going to fit in with what we believe in and what our core values are. After they're hired, our drivers receive extensive training in the equipment they're going to be operating so that they know exactly what to do in any situation. And then as they progress through their careers, they're given ongoing training, including defensive driver training. We use the Smith system training that's used throughout our industry and other transportation industries as well to provide defensive driving. The other thing you're going to get if you partner with Alaska Waste is great service. We've been providing great service here in the community of Seward for quite some time, and we're going to continue to do that. We've got some newly designed bear carts that we're going to offer to the residents that not only will keep bears out, but they're also easier for our customers to use. One of the things that I personally picked up trash here in Seward in the past, and I know that the locks have a tendency to freeze in the wintertime. Our new carts have an inside mechanism that I can't say it's going to absolutely get rid of any freezing issues, but it certainly does resist freezing. In addition to that, we have customer service representatives that are trained with secret shoppers, and we have just instituted new tablets that will allow customers to almost see real time exactly what's happening with their account. And then the last thing I want to touch on real quick is sustainability. Alaska Waste is the industry leader in sustainability. I was here a couple weeks ago and mentioned some of the things we've done in other communities. What I'd like to mention though, if you look at the proposal we're going to specifically do for Seward. One of the things we're going to do immediately upon the start of the contract is offer commercial cardboard recycling for the businesses in Seward. And we're going to divert some of the funds that we're going to receive from that and invest them back into Seward to help really with the community to decide what sustainability initiatives and how we can help out in the future.
Great,
Thank
thank you,
you.
sir. Madam Clerk?
Madam Mayor, last signed in is Michelle Oliver.
Hello, Michelle Oliver, outside city limits, city employee dispatcher, and I also part of the union negotiation team. I wanted to thank everybody that was involved. It was a long process, a lot of weekends, a lot of afternoons missed out on sunny days to get this done. But we came to an agreement, and we're hoping that you will see the same. There are a lot of people that would really appreciate what's going to happen as far as bringing people up to where they belong. That's the biggest component of this. Stephen was great in offering some other things that we weren't expecting. And the negotiation team on both sides were just great. So again, I want to say thank you, and I certainly hope that you will look at this as a step in the right direction for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, no one else has signed in?
No, ma'am.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak? I'm gonna go. Go ahead.
Hi, everybody. I'm Susie Towsley. I currently live inside city limits. A couple things. Thank you, everybody, for the hard work that you guys do on council. You're much appreciated. The domestic violence sexual assault program that was at Seaview has changed programs now. We are no longer a Seaview entity, and we are now housed underneath the Prevention Coalition, Sewer Prevention Coalition's umbrella. We're still in Seaview Plaza. The crisis number is 362-1843. That hasn't changed. There's a new office number if people want to contact them, an advocate during the day, and that's 422-7668. I had to write it on my hand because I don't have it memorized yet. That's 422-7668 from 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, and then the work that we do 24/7 on the crisis line, that's 362-1843. It's been a fairly smooth transition. We're grateful to Seaview for it's really a robust program that does a lot of great work in the community, and we're excited to be part of the Prevention Coalition. So October will be Domestic Violence Prevention and Awareness Month, and we'll have some events coming up around that, and I'll be back to talk to you about that then, and maybe give out more masks if we're still doing that then. Shifting gears, as a former member of council, I just think it's wonderful that the union contract's on the agenda, and that the tenor and tone in the building seems to have shifted, and that it seems to be a healthy contract and a healthy community conversation about having valued employees, and I'm really proud of everybody for that, so well done, everybody. And I think that's all I have to say, so you guys have a great night, and thanks again for all you do.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak? Hearing and seeing none, next on the agenda is the approval and agenda and consent agenda, and I'm looking for a motion and a second.
I move for the approval of the agenda and consent agenda.
I second it.
Okay, well, first we have to get the motion on the floor. Okay.
I second
So we have a motion and a second. Okay, now's the time. Are there any changes?
Yes, I would like to put the union contract on the consent agenda. Everybody kind of really read it over. I think that's what we need.
Is there any objections? No? On consent? Anything else?
Madam Mayor,
Yes?
I would like to add resolution 2021-084 to the consent agenda.
Okay. Is there any objections to that?
I have an objection to that.
Well, I'll try to add resolution 2021-085 to the consent agenda. Is there any objections to that? But I do also need to pull item B1, approval of the July 26, 2021 City Council regular meeting minutes, just off the consent agenda. So we'll take that item off. Any other changes? Madam Clerk, I think we're ready for the vote on the agenda and the consent agenda.
Voting on tonight's agenda and consent agenda as amended. Demas?
Yes.
Buckman?
Yes.
McClure?
Yes.
Casagrande?
Yes.
Cease?
Yes.
Bolsenga?
Yes.
Mayor Terry?
Yes.
Your agenda and consent agenda are approved. And approved on tonight's consent agenda is Resolution 2021-083, authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with Harmon Construction in an amount not to exceed $282,500 for sidewalk repair project E for Fifth Avenue sidewalk repairs and appropriating funds. Resolution 2021-085, authorizing the city manager to enter into a new wholesale power supply contract with Chugash Electric Association for an initial term of 3 years with 2 3-year renewals. Also approved, Resolution 2021-086, approving the agreement covering terms and conditions of employment between the City of Seward, Alaska and the Seward Public Employees Association, effective January 1st, 2022, and ending December 31st, 2022. And last, approved on consent, you have a non-objection to the transfer of the liquor license and approval of the restaurant designation permit for Thorns Showcase Lounge, beverage dispensary license number 1130.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Next on the agenda is special orders, presentations, and reports, proclamations, and awards. There are none. I might just let the council know under this that I have been in contact with the Jacoby family, so they do know that we are very interested in doing a proclamation, and we're just going to work on their schedule, obviously. And I know the borough also has a proclamation that they'd like to read at this meeting, but we'll just take our cue from that family. So just letting people know. Next is the Borough Assembly report. I don't see the Borough Assembly representative here. Next on the agenda is the City Manager's report, and that starts on page 4 of your packet. City Manager.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First, I wanted to thank all of the staff members for their work on the parade. Both Stephen and I and Councilmember Demas were in Fairbanks for the AML Summer Conference, and we were really missing the parade. We were keeping up via Facebook and text from staff members, and I really, really appreciate all of your work on that. I'd also like to recognize Stephen for his work on the union contract, so thank you, everyone. You're wonderful. At the last meeting, Madam Mayor, you asked a question about the effluent, and I wanted to have the expert come speak to you, and that would be Doug. So he has some information regarding your question.
But I'm afraid I'll disappoint our audience a little bit. I think that there was a presentation. It's not a presentation. I was just asked to come and answer questions. Does the effluent go in the bay, and if so, where and how and all that? Yes, it does. Has as part of the DEC permit. We have a 14-inch line that comes out with the effluent, and it goes, there's a little one-lane bridge out there. It's approximately 200 yards or so this side of that bridge. It's 200, it goes down 170 feet down and then out and then down some more. So approximately 300 feet down, 300 feet out. We then have a mixing zone, they call it, DEC sets up for us. We have to take samples in that mixing zone every month. We're doing our samples of water quality, and we all realize what it is and what goes there. It's a different, it's no different than most of the other communities that we do. I agree with him. Resurrection Bay is our treasure. It's a thing that we look at, and we're certainly serious about keeping our effluent to our permit levels. I had a pretty good conversation in the hall with him about other issues with chemicals and the different medications we take, and meth, and these things that not only are maybe disposed of, but also go through bodies and in through. And not sure how we would ever test for that, but you know, until there's a test, or we have a test, we talked about first off identifying what is the problem out there. Is there a problem, and where and how? And where do we want to go with that, and what technology? If there's a way to test it for a reasonable amount, I'm certainly not against looking for that, because it tells us one way or the other, yes, there is some sort of a problem in that area or any area. So those are things that are, I mean, we're certainly not against looking at those things, but anyway, the question was, do we actually, does the effluent go in the bay? And yes, it does. Like I said, it's all regulated through our permit, and I'd be glad to answer any other questions on it if there was some.
Go ahead.
I have been asked if Resurrection Rentals, do they dump all their sewage out there? Do they have it? Is that where they dump their sewage when they pump all the outhouses?
The porta potties that are around get dumped in through the sewer. There's a manhole that gets dumped for the porta potties. We don't take septic waste from a septic. It's not, we're not equipped to take that full on hot. It's hot. Basically it sits and it's just the full solids that come out of septic a lot of it because the water's draining off. And
Yeah.
we're not set up for that, so we don't take.
But the outhouses are, and when he pumps, when Resurrection,
Yeah, and the outhouses, I guess, same thing, porta potty type of thing is what you're looking at. And as he pumps those, they do go through our sewer system over off of Diamond Street.
okay, does he have to pay for that extra?
There is, he pays sewer fees and water fees.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? I do have a question. I know you're working with R&M, and just to be clear, so R&M, they're gonna provide information back on the lagoon capacity and then any additional treatment recommendations, is that correct?
They were to do an overview, basically, of where we are, what is our capacities, what do they think we would need in the future, what issues they may see, improvements, or whether they feel it's up to what it's supposed to be. So they're kind of doing a quick overview of it first. I shouldn't say quick, I mean, they're doing a pretty thorough job of going through they've been asking us for more documentation. We're now providing our discharge monitoring reports, and there's some that we're pulling out that we still have to provide, but we'll get the rest of those to them and let them continue. They're still pretty much on schedule. They asked, I think, city manager for an extension just out to October 6th or something, or October 8th, somewhere in there to finish it all up. But that's all coming through, and they seem to be doing a thorough job, and I think coming out of that, and I had mentioned before, was possibly as you go through those suggestions and the findings they have is to look at maybe really working a master plan for the 20-year plan for water, wastewater in general.
Great, thank you. Are there any more questions for Doug? Thank you, Doug.
Yep.
And then back to the city manager.
That is all I have, other than what is in my report, and then if you have any questions.
Well, just an encouragement again. The tsunami issue we had, I'm just complimenting you. You guys handled it very well this time, way better than in the past. It was handled. The one suggestion you made in your report, I'm going to say, putting the radio station call numbers on the announcement. I've been trying to get that done for years and years and years, so I don't know if you can manage to get that put on the announcement. Because even if, I was trying to think of other ways that tourists could find out where the local radio station is. You know, we could have signs all over, but when you're panicking because you have to evacuate, you're not going to want to look at your ticket or, you know, so if any strings you can pull to get that done.
Keep trying.
I know, but it was handled very well.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments, Councilmember?
I don't know if this is the right place to do this or if I can, so stop me if I can't. We have a work session coming up that I'm not going to be attending. I'll be attending virtually, hopefully. But I was wondering if there's a possibility I could add some verbiage to the discussion for that work session, specifically to discuss city loans for life and safety compliance, and also to discuss city bed tax filing deadline and early remittance fees, as well as portions of Seward City Code 15.10.140, which is already how we have it. But it's all related around short-term lodging.
You know, I'd like to have a vote on it. I guess for me, I'd like it to be really specific to the ordinance, that work session that we're discussing, especially if those are your items to not have you here. Can those be done in another work session?
So I met with Jackie Wild in Community Development today with Councilmember DeMoss, and I feel good about the understanding of the ordinance, and a lot of my questions were answered, but there were more things that came up in regards to the ordinance. One being, you know, if there's, how do I say this? If the life and safety inspections are going to be more costly to the short-term lodging people because we have better fire inspections happening today than things that were maybe overlooked for years in the past, a possible loan from the city or some way to help those people that are getting these surprise costs be able to pay for those are just as important as changing the ordinance, I feel. I feel like it's important for us to come with a solution along with there's a lot of things in the ordinance as far as like fines and violations and a lot of things that are changing, that this could really help people be better code abiders.
Honestly, this just makes me totally confused, because I feel like we as a council voted to, you know, definitely look at that ordinance, and I guess I don't understand enough how that matches into the ordinance that we're reviewing, since I wasn't at the meeting. Is it a second work session that we can have after? Do you believe that it's enough of a different topic that it won't fall under the work session that we already have noticed? Councilmember DeMoss?
I'll say that it was administration's suggestion that we reword the work session and add this to it, Jackie in Community Development, when we spoke with her today after we all kind of spoke about the issues in the short-term lodging ordinance. So, I mean, I felt like you guys weren't in that meeting, so we came to that and it made sense to us, but if we feel it should be a separate work session, that could happen too, but it did seem like it was all kind of related into what we were discussing.
But it's not covered by the title that we have?
Right.
Okay. What is the title of our work session specifically for the 17th? Do you know, Madam Clerk? Because it's a joint work session with P&Z. Review and discuss, is it just review and discuss ordinance 2021-006?
Yeah,
That's the actual title?
of the ordinance, yeah.
And then what additional language was administration's suggestion?
To discuss city loans for life and safety compliance, city bed tax filings and deadline, and city bed tax filing deadlines and early remittance fee, and portions of Seward City Code. I had 15.10.140, which was the ordinance, but the clerk said something different, 21?
No, 2021-006.
Oh, sorry, okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Councilmember Osenga?
So the question is to modify the title, but I'm not sure that we should do that right now without actually knowing exactly what we're doing. I mean, I'm kind of in the dark here, so I'm not sure that changing the title on this right now is something we should do.
Well,
I think that we can look at doing something in the future, but right now, or having a future meeting on this, but just doing it off the cuff right here in this particular part of the meeting, I don't think is.
Well, and honestly, correct me if I'm wrong, administration can update that title. That work session title, Madam Clerk?
They certainly, I mean, they can, and we have plenty of time to notice it,
Yeah.
repost it.
So does everyone feel comfortable? It sounds like that you feel comfortable. Would you feel comfortable if that's something administration wants to add to that work session, that they provide that update to the public?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
I just want to ask Councilmember Casagrande a question, and just to be clear so that I understand what you're asking, is that with this current ordinance, you see that there could be possibly more people who are falling under fines and or charges because of this ordinance, and what you are possibility of.
Sure.
And what you are proposing is to come up with solutions as well during this meeting so that it's not just saying, these are the problems, figure out how to fix it, but be able to have different solutions on figuring out. And maybe one of the other ways is payment plans or loans or different solutions to do this. Okay, I understand. Thank you.
I don't know, does administration know anything about this?
I'm sorry, Madam Mayor, I don't. But looking at the ordinance, if we can certainly add that in as a discussion item. I'm looking at the ordinance, kind of how it would pertain as far as noticing, and it is regarding the chapter 5.4010, excuse me. So because of that, I mean, it only pertains to definitions, and then 226.
And then are the fines in a different section of the code?
That's what I'm wondering, if the
That's what I was
fines are.
So that's what, so, you know, was the fire chief there during the
The
meeting?
fines are in the.
Fines are in it.
Okay,
Yep.
Madam Mayor,
go ahead.
but the part where we start saying we can maybe give a loan is not covered by this. This is just defining, right? Changing wording, this is the definitions and doing the recodification. But coming up with a whole plan of trying to help people to pay for their fines isn't in this ordinance. So
It's
I
not-
would see that it's a problem inserting that into this.
Excuse me, Madam Mayor. I'm not suggesting that the city help people pay for their fines. Sorry, that's total miscommunication. I'm gonna withdraw my question and my request, and I'll just bring it forward at the next meeting as a discussion to schedule a work session. Thank you.
Well, I mean, I guess I would like to see if administration could help during that time.
Sure.
I mean, if it sounds like it's something that evolved out of the discussion with administration and maybe there's
Absolutely.
some work that can work on that title. And if those items are gonna be brought to that meeting, we definitely need to make sure that we're publicly announcing it so the public is aware.
Yes, I don't see, there is, as stated, there are reference to fines and the fees, so I don't see a problem with discussing that further, how those would be resolved.
It might help to have that department that's gonna implement those fees at that work session. I think that'd be helpful for P and Z to hear and for council to hear on what that implementation's gonna look like, what that billing structure's gonna look like, and how that's gonna happen. Because I know with the building inspections, maybe there's been some confusion there with some of that already, so knowing that.
Yeah, definitely at the end of the day, our desire is to lessen the confusion and to help
Yeah.
the public, so if this is part, helps with the public for further discussion on it, I'm not opposed to it.
Yeah.
And I'll get some more information, obviously, by then.
Anything else? Any other comments for the city manager? Thank you. Next on the agenda is the city attorney's report, and that's found on page 18.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Council. Report covers July, a relatively light month, legally speaking, in part because I was on vacation for a couple of weeks. There were some things that got accomplished, though. One fairly significant one is resolution of sort of a thorny dispute with Avtech about electric billing, so that's behind us now. Next up on that, in that area is, that one pertained to electric. Now, there's some work being done on water and sewer, where there's also some billing issues, historic, with Avtech. Finally resolved an employee grievance, so one more thing behind us on that. Drafted some revisions to our developer reimbursement ordinance. That's probably a couple months away from hitting your packets. It's really, I got asked for some ideas, put them on paper, and administration will go from there. A little bit of enforcement action in the planning area, basically working with a property owner to make sure that a fire inspection that had not been done and was well overdue, way overdue, got taken care of. And we're also dealing with an expired conditional use permit type issue that's just beginning. Did a little bit of work on the recodification. I've kind of fallen behind that project a little bit. Hopefully we'll catch up some on this month, but we've pretty much completed the component of that project that covers the first 8 titles of the city code. So halfway through we're about halfway through it, I'd say. Finalized the agreement that is going to be the gift from the Norwegian Cruise Lines that's going to go toward a child care facility in this community. Finalization of the animal control contract, a couple of records requests, that's 1 or 2 of those almost every month. Did initial review and reaction to some suggested changes in that big real estate purchase contract with Chugachmute. And I'm kind of thinking that, I think that will be in position to wrap up within the next 60 days as well. I think the appraisals are in, so should be able to do the final wordsmithing on that within the next month or 2. And the community is going to be in the process of transferring an FCC license out of the hands of the city and into a private media group. And had some kind of routine advice on how the process for that, not necessarily the substance of it, because it's not going to really involve a lot of money or anything. And there's just got started on a project kind of toward the tail end of the month. Relatively significant changes to lease arrangements between the university and the shellfish hatchery. Again, that probably won't hit your packets for another month, maybe even 2 months, because there's some things that involve 3 parties that have to kind of work out how the property is going to be used. The concept is you're going to reconfigure sort of the area being leased. I mean, it's not huge changes in the substance or terms of the agreement, but the actual physical location of who's leasing what from whom, which has got overly complicated over the years. So, but it's all part of a kind of an exciting project that I think the university is going to be renovating the dock facility for the vessel whose name I can't pronounce, and that kind of sums it up. I think I've been telling you for a couple of months about, you know, the legal expenses are going to go down, and they are going to, but June was still a high month, which was over $15,000. But July won't be that high. And the other thing that I just want to take a moment to say that this marks a year that our firm has served as the city attorney for Seward, and I wanted to just express our appreciation for having been given that opportunity, and to just to tell you that personally I've enjoyed working both with the council and with the administration. There's been, you know, it's been I think a pretty positive year, and look forward for another good year ahead. And the next report, I think I'll try to give you a kind of a year-long picture of the legal expenses and what was done for that. I might have done that a few months ago, but it's a good thing to do, you know, twice a year, I think, to get the kind of the overall big picture on where we're at. But again, thank you to everyone. It's been a very good working relationship. I can take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for the city attorney? Go ahead.
Regarding the purchase and sale agreement that you're working on with Chugachmute, this microphone is really loud.
You can push it if you want.
Is it because it's... is there a contingency or something that can be put in there that gives us a guarantee that the property will be developed within X amount of time for the purpose in which we're selling it? Or is that something, I mean, I don't know how all
Yes,
of
that
this...
can be part of the agreement, and I'm pretty sure I'm pretty sure the use of the property is in there, but I don't know if there's a deadline for it to be developed. Is there anything particular you're looking for in terms of a time frame?
I mean, no, I'm not
Okay.
a contractor, and I know things are hard to get to right now,
Yeah.
and we're in unprecedented times, so I don't know if it could be something where it's maybe a year with, if needed, to apply for an extension if things come up. I don't know what that looks like maybe not
Yeah,
a
I
hard.
just, I'm the attorney for the community clinic in Girdwood, and they just undertook a pretty significant project, and so they just like broke ground this month, and I think they're looking at a year and a half or 2 years to do it.
Great.
Yeah, a couple seasons. Some of that depends on actually when the agreement gets finalized, because obviously you don't start building in February, so.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions?
Um,
Oh, I was just checking to make sure there wasn't a follow-up from Emma Colby.
No.
Is it a follow-up or,
no, not a follow-up to that, so go ahead.
go ahead.
So I have one question, one comment. First comment is, I think we're still saving significant amounts of money by having you as our new attorney, and we appreciate that and the updates and the information that we have gotten so far. So thank you as well. But from me.
Yes, you're welcome.
The second question, I think it has just left my mind again. So if you want to go back, and maybe I'll think of it again.
Is the appraisal something that is public information
I haven't seen it, so.
when it comes out?
The general rule about that is, when you're in the process of going back and forth with somebody on a contract, it doesn't necessarily become public until you get to a certain point where it's actually going to be considered by the council, because you don't, generally speaking, negotiate contracts in public. But an appraisal, if it's a completed document, it's not really anything that would be negotiated, so. I can't, without knowing if the appraiser was given some secret proprietary information or something like that, I can't say completely 100%, but it strikes me that it would be available in response to a public records request.
Can I ask a follow-up in that?
Please.
Did the city pay for the appraisal?
My understanding is that there were going to be 2 appraisals, one commissioned and paid for by the city, and one commissioned and paid for by the buyer,
Okay, thank you.
which is not that unusual with a transaction of this magnitude.
Thank you.
Yes, I remember. I remember that when we did hire a firm, that you would be our general counsel for the first year. Will you still remain as that, or will that be
Well,
changing?
You hired the firm. I promised that I was going to be doing 90% of the work for the first year, and so I'm probably looking to maybe reduce that to 80% or something, but I'm not like running away or saying, okay, on to the next town or something like that, partly because I just have enjoyed working with people. But there is a component of our business where, older guys like me try to bring along younger attorneys, give them some advice on how to do what I do, that type of thing. And so that's going to increase a little bit over the next year, I think. And the person within my firm that I'm hoping to get more involved in the work for the city is somebody that's done, he's definitely done the 10% that I didn't do this year, is Sam Severin. So hopefully get him down here for, you'll see him probably for a meeting or 2 over the next year instead of me, that type of thing. But so it's not a huge change or anything, but probably a slight change.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions?
I was going to say a closing comment, but it seemed opportune. I guess I just wanted to say to Brooks, on behalf of Jeanette and I, that it's also been a true pleasure to work with you and your team, and to highlight what Brooks just mentioned. Sam Severin has been an amazing asset. When either Sam or Brooks was unavailable or on vacation a couple times. We had some questions as we were entering into union negotiations, and Patrick and Charles and the whole team has been really, really responsive. So I guess from administration's point of view, the whole firm has been just a pleasure to work with. You guys are very communicative and meeting the needs that we feel like we have, so thank you.
You're welcome.
Next on the agenda is other reports and announcements. I want to thank Councilmember Demas for taking time and going to the summer session of AML in addition to our assistant city manager and city manager. But I know that on the agenda you have some report comments you'd like to make about your time.
Yeah, thank you. It was really fun, and it was just a really good opportunity for me. So I want to say thanks for sending me, first of all. I feel like I really got a lot out of it. It was a little bit of a different scene for me. So at first I was like, but I learned a lot, and I met a lot of really great people. So I'll just give you a little bit of a rundown of what I did. The first day that I got there wasn't really anything for AML for going on for me, and administration was in a couple meetings, so I actually sat in on the Conference of Mayors and got to sit in on a meeting that they were discussing about how to form relationships and get what you want from DOT. So I know Jeanette really wanted to sit in on that, and she couldn't, so I did. I tried to absorb as much as I could, but I did kind of get, mainly they were talking about forming what they call RTPOs, Regional Transportation Planning Organizations. Overall, the concept is just getting together with regional people in our area to have a stronger voice to say, hey, the Seward Highway needs work, or hey, this is what we're looking at. So, they said that really that's your best bet, is forming organizations to have a bigger voice and nurturing relationships. As we all know, that's a good way to get what you want. But that's kind of what I got from that meeting. They also spoke, a lot of the mayors spoke about just economic recovery and what we all did kind of to get through it, and how we distributed the COVID grant money. Tim Dillon spoke from KPED. He highlighted Seward. He highlighted all the money that we gave to our businesses and nonprofits, and really gave us a lot of kudos for that, which I thought was great. I met a lot of the mayors from the other communities, and that was just really cool. A lot of people know you guys, and so, and just a lot of good feedback about Seward and stuff. We had the reception at the Salmon Bake that night. That was really fun. That's a super cool place. Fairbanks is neat. I hadn't really been there for like 20 years. The next day, AML conference, we discussed legislation affecting local municipalities. There were a couple things that, honestly with that, I didn't really see a lot that stood out just for Seward. There were a couple things I found interesting. One, SB 9 is a Title IV rewrite, which will allow for people to get their alcohol beverage online classes indefinitely, which I think is great, especially for rural communities, and even like Seward, we have a hard time getting those classes taken care of. Another one which I thought was cool was SB 131, which is a work comp disability for firefighters, adding breast cancer to covered cancers, which I found interesting, wasn't on there. A lot of talk about the infrastructure bill coming out. We're talking about a lot of money to Alaska, I think like $3.5 billion just in highway funding for Alaska, includes Marine Highway. $225 million to Alaska to fix over 140 bridges. $180 million over 5 years for water and wastewater, just in Alaska. A minimum of $100 million for each state for broadband. $20 million for Alaska public use cabins, $73 million to Alaska for ferry operating costs. Construction, I wonder if maybe we want to try and look at getting a ferry back to Seward. I don't know. Something that a couple of us talked about, might be a good timing for that. There's going to be $1 billion nationwide for grid infrastructure and resiliency in towns smaller than 10,000 people. There's going to be a lot of tribal money, which Alaska is going to be able to take advantage of, aside from this other money. $3.5 billion nationwide to Indian Health Sanitation Services, which is going to really help our rural communities get some water and sewer situations taken care of. We discussed AML fiscal policy. They're going to be launching a website that will help communicate impacts of local government, of state budget decisions for local government. So I think that'll be good. Mayor Ken Kastner from Homer was delightful to speak with, and we spoke with him about forming a Seabelt coalition with some of us communities, and that might be great, especially right now with all of this port money coming into the, and the marine highway money, just to kind of have a bigger voice for maybe some issues that we could all benefit from. The next day we had our Friday meeting. On the last day, that morning meeting, we talked about retirement, recruitment, and retention of employees. We discussed PERS and some potential changes that will be coming. PERS confuses me, I won't lie. I learned a lot, but I'm not an expert at all. What I did find was that it basically wasn't well received, the changes from most people in the room. Admin can probably go into detail a little bit more about it. There was a lot of talk from municipalities about having a hard time getting enough police officers and having to compete with the trooper pay right now. The troopers are offering $20,000 bonuses and much higher pay. So it's not just an issue in our little town where we're short 3 police officers right now, but we're finding an issue all over because the troopers are offering these great incentives. So it's something that I think we should at least be aware of and maybe discuss. Other than that, I really did hear a lot of really positive remarks from people about our current administration and Seward in general. A lot of discussion on Lydia and people asking us about Lydia. And I was just really proud to be there, and I'm just really thankful that I had the opportunity to go. So I just want to say thank you. And that's about it.
That's a very thorough report, thank you. And I don't know, is there anything administration would like to add to that?
First, it was a pleasure having you go, Councilmember DeMoss, and I think that we had a really good time and learned a lot. And I have to say that Councilmember DeMoss was kind about PERS. I actually spoke a few times because I was so frustrated with the PERS and the process, and now they're talking about adding a tier 5 for police and fire, which isn't a bad thing because it they're creating a hybrid model of the tiers to better recruitment. However, I don't think it fits the need at all. To me, at the end of the day, what I received, and granted I was a little fired up, but what I received was that it's still going to create an unfunded mandate, this tier 5 for police and fire. So why not put them in tier 3? Put them back to tier 3 because it doesn't solve the issue. It still isn't a true tier system of benefit for police and fire. It just, again, creates an unfunded mandate. So, and Councilmember DeMoss is correct, it was not well received, and it again went back to, was it 2006 time frame, where they found the actual aerial was incorrect, and so it still makes my blood boil. But there will be a lot more talk on this bill at some point in time. Did you want to add?
No, just thank you again to Councilmember DeMoss for going. It was a really good opportunity also, I thought, my first time in attendance for networking and just talking to folks in the other Seabelt communities. They all face similar we talked a lot about child care in kind of the lunch hour. We talked about economic recovery, and just kind of comforting to see that a lot of coastal communities in Alaska are working on the same challenges as us. And so one of the things that Jeanette and I are going to definitely do moving forward is just collaborating and communicating with a lot of those communities that face similar issues as us, because, especially on the peninsula, Kodiak, we were talking a lot with the mayor from Homer, and they're facing a lot similar issues, which we're all in this together. So I think that was, for me, one of the benefits. So thank you for letting us go.
Thank you, and we did miss you, but we know you were doing the hard work, so thank you guys. There are no presentations. Next on the agenda, we're down to our public hearing. So the first public hearing item is, the only public hearing item is Ordinance 2021-006. Madam Clerk, would you read the title into the minutes, please?
Ordinance 2021-006 is amending portions of Seward City Code 15.10.140 definitions, 15.10.226 land uses allowed, to change, update, and accommodate the wishes of the public to promote life safety and maintain a city code that reflects the community's needs.
Thank you, and we're looking for a motion and a second for enactment.
I move for the approval of ordinance 2021-006.
I'll second it.
Great, and I think we all know that we have a work session, but I think we'll go through and make sure that administration has a chance to talk about it. We will hold a public hearing tonight, and then we can go ahead and have a motion to postpone if that's our wish. But I'll turn it over to you all first.
The only thing that I would have is, again, what was requested earlier. I will do the research and, of course, meet with our community development director regarding the request. And that at this time, that's really all I have to add, and looking forward to the work session. And I would say if you have any specific questions about the ordinance, please let us know so that we can, get the information before the work session, and we'll do our best to answer the questions. But I am looking forward to it. It is a change, and so we should definitely delve into it and talk about it.
Okay, so right now, I'll go ahead and open up the public hearing. Madam Clerk, is anyone signed in to speak?
Madam Mayor, I have no one signed in.
Is there anyone in the public wishing to speak at this public hearing? Hearing and seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. I guess just for the record, one thing I'd like to see is we are changing a number of the definitions, and I know that the city attorney did review the ordinance that's outlined in code. But I don't know that the city attorney is reviewing the ordinance to double check all the definitions that they continue to jive. Like, I feel like we're in a big code revision right now, so with this ordinance, I want to make sure that it's not creating more problems that we're now addressing in the total review of the code. So that's what I'm going to be looking for at the work session, just to make sure all those definitions fall in line with things. And I don't know if anyone has any comments right now for that work session. I think if that would be great in the meantime, if you could check with community development and see what else we're going to be talking about to make sure the public is aware.
Sure.
Councilmember Casagrande?
One of the things that I didn't bring up in our meeting today that came after the meeting, is there a way that city administration for the work session could bring the definitions of, I believe it's like residential group R, residential group R1, residential group R2 is, and the R3 per the, because those are definitions that we're taking out of life and safety code, I believe. Can we just get the, like, where, like, does that define it, or does that tell us to refer to this other book? Mm-hmm. And is there something in that other book that we need to know when we're referring to this? That's the main question.
Okay. And so, on to that, if we're referencing code in other sections of the code or other books, like building codes that have the possibility to be updated, that always makes me nervous, because then those things get updated, but then we have a wrong reference in this code, because then it doesn't follow through. So I guess, again, I go back to, we're doing this comprehensive code revision and checking to make sure everything jives. I just don't want more problems to be created with this. So I'll go ahead and make a motion to, unless there's further discussion, but I'll go ahead and make a motion to postpone deliberating on the enactment until the next regular meeting.
I'll second that.
And I'll just speak to that as we have the work session on the 17th. I think there's a number of questions that can be answered and checked, and then by the following meeting, we should be ready to vote. So, Madam Clerk, could you take a vote on the postponement, please?
Voting on the motion to postpone to August 23rd, Leclerc,
Yes.
Casagrande,
Yes.
Demas,
Yes.
Cease,
Yes.
Osenga,
Yes.
Backlund,
Yes.
Mayor Terry.
Yes.
That ordinance has been postponed.
So next on the agenda is unfinished business items, and this resolution is on the floor, and it's Resolution 2021-079. Madam Clerk?
Resolution 2021-079 is authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with Oakland Incorporated for an online business license portal in the amount of $17,000 and appropriating funds. This resolution was postponed from July 23rd, 2021. Your main motion is back on the floor.
So I believe we postponed it specific to the question about notice to terminate, and I did see that there's potentially another contract in here. So Madam Clerk, I'll turn it over to you for explanation.
As a follow-up to Councilmember Casagrande's concerns at the last meeting, went back to the vendor and working with our city attorney and and the vendor, we were able to get this services agreement that's included in your packet now. And they were amenable to updating some of the language that they offered specifically in section 7.3 for termination. And our city attorney, I won't speak for him, but just to say that he was satisfied that this would allow us enough movement if we needed to make some changes.
Are there any questions or discussions? Go ahead.
I just have a question for the city clerk, maybe for administration. It seems that ultimately what we want is something that will create a portal for the users and all of administration to be able to work from 2 to 3 different buildings all together. To be able to do the business licensing, the fire inspections, the finance, be able to collect the payments. Is this company something that can ultimately do exactly what we want, or are we settling for what we can find for now? With that said, is there something out there where we can pay bed tax online, we can pay for our city license online, we can get notices from the fire department that says what we need to do, we can upload our insurance if we end up requiring insurance, we can upload our applications, and emails will go out to everyone. Does this software do that?
This vendor actually does do all of that. That would be what I would say the catalog, version of what they offered us a year ago was that we couldn't, there's no way we could approach the price tag on a system like that. What we're trying to contract with now is a very scaled down, very defined scope of just business license program online as a starting place. So you get into software, this program can be scalable. It can add inspections and permits and take payments and do all of that as you described. It's just a matter of getting our internal systems aligned and handling it as a budget item. So it's as scalable as you want it to be.
Any other questions or discussion? Madam Clerk, let's call for a vote, please.
Voting on the approval of Resolution 2021-079. McClure,
Yes.
Osenga,
Yes.
Cease,
Yes.
Backlund,
Yes.
Casagrande,
No.
Demas,
Yes.
and Mayor Terry.
Yes.
That resolution is approved.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is Resolution 2021-084. Madam Clerk.
Resolution 2021-084 is approving a franchise for the collection and disposal of garbage and refuse with Alaska Waste, Kenai Peninsula LLC, subject to approval by the voters of Seward at the October 5th, 2021 regular city election.
And I'm looking for a motion and a second.
I move for the approval of Resolution 2021-084.
I'll second.
And I'll turn it over to administration.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think I'm just going to go actually through the agenda statement just a little bit, and please stop me when needed.
As you know, the code requires that city residents have trash service. And so in an effort to basically make that happen, there's been a franchise agreement in place for a number of years for this service. The contract is set to expire December 31st of 2022, and we decided to move this forward to you at this time so we could put it on the October ballot. Tonight is the deadline for the October ballot. So to move this forward, because it is a year early, but we were concerned about that if this, if the council didn't pass it next year and/or the voters didn't pass it, that how would that affect the service in January of 2023? So we decided to bring it to you this year. So that's why you have it before you at this time. A couple things that I wanted to note is that there's been a question of why the city enters into a franchise agreement for refuse services. Honestly, that's one of the things that I weighed in my mind as well. At first I thought it was a charter requirement. It is not a charter requirement. It's a code requirement that that residents have service, but not a charter requirement that it be a franchise. So that, in my mind, it opened it up to, well, then really the city residents would have the ability to contact whoever they wanted, who was an approved hauler, approved through borough, state, and all those things like that, directly for services. So I thought, well, maybe we could go that route. However, I became concerned about what if, say, I'll just use you as an example. What if Alaska Waste decides that a competitor came into town, another person came into town, and there wasn't enough service for Alaska Waste where they felt it was profitable to be here? They could just leave without a franchise agreement. The other person, the other company, could do so as well, leaving Seward with no one. So that is a concern, because then what would residents do? And we don't want that. We want trash service here. So I ultimately thought, okay, a franchise agreement is a good way to go. One thing that you will notice also, that it does not include recycling. The agreements have never included recycling. And part of this is that, well, one, we don't have a code mandate regarding recycling, but it's encouraged. But right now, residents have the ability to contact recycling services themselves. You can enter into your own personal contract or your own personal service or whatever with a recycling service at this time. It's not mandated by code, and it's not required that through the franchise agreement that it be done through the company, currently Alaska Waste. So I just want to reiterate, you can have recycling services now and contact a company directly for that. And then also included in your packet is the criteria, the RFP process and the criteria and the scoring for Alaska Waste as well.
Is there questions for Administration? Go ahead.
So I just want to be clear for the record, you said right now people can call someone and have recycling services. The approval of this, will they still be able to have call someone and have recycling services?
Correct. It is not recycling service is not included in the franchise agreement. What is included is the trash pickup exclusively.
And I'd like to thank you as well for coming, because there was something that you said at the end of that really your remarks that I wanted to hear. So I'm glad that you came down and made the effort to make at least show some face from Alaska Waste, and working with Alaska Waste through the recycling group as well has been a pleasure. So hopefully we look forward to a long relationship.
Is there any other questions or discussions? Councilmember Cease.
So you do provide the recycle business though, correct?
Well, okay, so we currently are on the record. If you'd like to suspend the rules to ask him a question, we need to make sure there's no objections from other people on council. Would you like to suspend the rules?
Yes.
Is there any objection from council? Could you step to the podium, please? Councilmember Cease, you can go ahead and ask your question.
You will keep all the recycling things going with your contract?
Yeah, so in our proposal, we proposed to actually increase recycling options within sewer because the way the RFP was written, it was somewhat vague as far as recycling. It said, hey, we want to encourage recycling. We're not going to include it as part of the RFP, and it's not going to be considered as part of the bid packet. But we do think there's some opportunity to continue recycling here. Obviously, throughout Alaska, there's challenges to recycling, but we want to partner with Seward to kind of overcome those challenges and really understand what it is that Seward wants to recycle and how we can help them do that. Currently, a lot of people use the transfer site. They can drop off recyclables there, and that works fine. We're going to continue to operate that drop-off site for people who want to just drop off their own, but we're also going to provide some other options for people who find that inconvenient or maybe they don't have time to do it.
Thank you. Did you have any follow-up?
No, just that I'm all for recycling, and that's,
Is there any other questions? Okay, we'll go back on the rules. Thank you, sir. Councilmember Cascaranda?
Can administration explain, the franchise agreement allows for costs to be adjusted annually based on 140% of the consumer price index, the CPI. Why 140%?
I do believe that is in the current contract and the language was kept. Yes, I'm confirming with finance. Yes, that is correct.
Go ahead.
So basically that is basic one, if I took the consumer price index, say last year it was 3.8%, I would multiply 3.8% times 1.14, and that's where, yeah?
And there is a reference to the CPI on the bottom of page 60. I was just reading through that as you were speaking. And this is amendable on, but this is what was in the contract before, so this is what the language we use.
So, and I guess one point I'd like to make is in my opinion, we definitely want this to be a contractor, because at this point, especially with the confusion or, with everything going on with PERS, we do not want to take this service on as a city service, in my opinion. We don't need to be taking on that burden. So I am in favor of continuing with the franchise agreement. Councilmember Suisse.
who did the scoring? 63.
Could you speak to that?
Sorry.
I was not on the score.
So the scoring team included myself, Harbor Master Norm Regis, one representative from finance, and I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank on the final person.
Okay, thanks.
That was it.
Councilmember Cascaranda.
Does administration have any history, just as a general rule of thumb for everything we do in the city, our utilities, our leases, everything, we use the CPI. We don't use 140% or 110% or 150%, we use the CPI. So is there some history behind why this agreement in particular is 140%?
We would have to get back to you on why it's in this agreement and not on the others, because I honestly don't know why it's on this agreement.
Can I ask if anybody on council knows the history of why we would be using 140% versus just the normal CPI?
Our attorney.
I was just going to mention that I believe that was specifically bid. So we went out to an RFP, and I think one of the components of it was what's your price proposal. So, that's what the contractor put in as a price proposal, I believe. For this contract now, if they're just taking it from the old one, I have no idea why it was in the old one.
Any further discussion? Go ahead.
I'd like to make an amendment to strike 140% of in the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th whereas, and strike under the actual proposition 140% of in the actual proposition.
I'll second.
I'm sorry, could you tell me where that is again?
It's in the 1, 2, 3, 4,
In the
fifth
resolution, what page?
whereas,
Yep.
60.
and then it's also on the bottom of page 61 in the actual proposition that will go before the voters,
Okay,
striking 140%.
thank you.
Well, 140% of, so it will just say based on the consumer price index.
I guess the problem's gonna be if that's what was in the proposal, if we change that, we no longer have a proposal. It's just like if we have someone bid on something and they say they'll do it for 300,000, and we say, oh no, let's strike 300,000, you're gonna do it for 250,000. I don't know how that works.
That's, you're basically rejecting the bid.
Yeah.
So, how does that work if that happens? Because, it does happen from time to time. You would go to your procurement code, you would either rebid, or you would take a look at, who was the other person that proposed and what was their price. I have no idea what the competing price proposal was, whether it was higher or lower or had no rate adjustment. Maybe they guaranteed a flat rate for 7 years. I mean, I'm not the one that opened the bids, so. But technically, you would be rejecting the bid that was submitted if in fact this 140% adjustment was part of the bid, which is, the contract says that it was part of the bid. In some situations, you can enter into a negotiation to try to convince somebody to change their bid price, but that's fairly rare that that's done in a public procurement process because it somewhat undermines the concept of open competitive bidding. Sometimes it can be done, but certainly the bidder he's not compelled to negotiate, and the second bidder, at least theoretically, might object and say, well, wait a second, they might not, I don't really think, can't say for sure.
For purposes to save anyone from confusion, I'll withdraw my second if my second agrees.
I agree.
I mean, my motion, sorry.
I guess that the other thing I just would like to stress is that it would be great to have this on the October ballot. I know having a special election is about $5,000, which $5,000 is well spent if we're not ready for something. But between now and the ballot, it's going to be administration's job to do a great job educating the public. In that voter booklet, you really need to lay out why we have a franchise agreement and why that's the best thing for Seward so that voters are able to make an informed choice. So I guess there's just a short timeline to do a lot of legwork with the community if it passes tonight. Councilmember Cease?
Okay, can you find out if it was in the last contract? Of that amount? It was?
No, we can find out.
Oh, okay.
Vice Mayor?
Doesn't the council have to vote on taking a stance on whether we support or not support or are neutral on a initiative that the citizens are voting on?
I believe if it's just pros and cons, a pro can be submitted, correct, in a voter book?
I would defer to the city attorney, but in my experience, it's either any statement made by the city could be perceived as being, even if educational, it could be perceived as influencing a vote.
So they're gonna have to, so they'll just have to bring that back to us. I can't imagine you would have this come forward without any information in a voter book.
I didn't disagree with what you said. I just wanted to know on the process, and I think that's what you hit right there.
Yeah, there's administration and or council can decide that the voter information that goes out is going to be explanatory, rather than say, vote yes or vote no. It's just going to simply explain, why are we doing this, how does it work, that type of thing, without encouraging either a yes or no vote. That can be done consistent with APOC regulations, and you can get into arguments, as the clerk has mentioned, about, well, are you really, is there a hidden message or something like that? But it's definitely possible to do it and comply with APOC. The other thing that you can do is you can decide that, no, we're going to advocate voter approval. We really believe in this. We think it's best for the community. We're going to encourage people to approve this. And if you do that, then you do have to file some paperwork with APOC. You have to have a specific appropriation if you're going to use city resources. It's a budget line item, special budget line item and that type of thing. So that's also an approach that's available. Just getting back to that 140%, it's one aspect of the contract says that the rate adjustment is subject to approval of the council of a tariff. You have a tariff for your electric, water, sewer, so you have a garbage tariff, and the idea is if the agreement gets approved, that the rate adjustment is subject to approval by the council. So it's not necessarily 100% locked in stone, but certainly the contract, the intent of it seems to be that would be approved, but it is not locked in stone. So the process is the voters approve the franchise and the contract agreement. Then there's a tariff with the rate adjustment that comes to you for official approval, which in effect is the City of Seward tariff. I mean, this is a city utility. The city holds the certificate that authorizes you and nobody else to collect solid waste within your service area, which it might be, I don't think, is a service area bigger than the city? Does it go beyond city boundaries? But anyway, there's a geographic component. You're the utility person. This is who you select to fulfill your obligation under that certificate to provide the utility service of solid waste collection. So the idea here is it's a long-term contract. If it gets approved by the voters, this tariff with the automatic rate adjustment comes before you for approval once. And if you approve that, then it's going to happen automatically every 7 years. If you don't approve it, I'm not sure what the outcome would be, but that's kind of how the contract's worded. So that's not an easy thing to explain to voters, right?
And then it says on the bottom of page 61 that it could be annually based on 140. So every year they can raise it.
Yes, that's the idea. The idea is that this is an automatic every year deal. I don't know what the numbers are, I don't know if they're charging everybody $35 a month or $50 a month or whatever, but it's certainly possible to project historic. If this was in the old contract, then everyone knows how it works because it's been in place. But you certainly can say, because there's a specific proposed rate, I'm sure there is, that's the starting rate. And then you can say, historically, there's all kinds of statistics on what the CPI has been. You can do the math and project out what the rates would be over a 7-year period.
Further discussion, Councilmember?
So, I'm looking on the City of Seward website right now. We have the electric tariff, the sewer tariff, the water tariff. I honestly don't recall ever seeing a garbage tariff other than it's just in our code that we're required to have it. So,
I will say, and we've talked about this before, like right now, none of our tariffs are all in one book. you have to go to the different departments unless you've done that. But it used to be under water, wastewater, public works, there was at least 2 pages that had our garbage rates, because then you could go to the size and over, roll on. So I've seen it, but I will say in the last year or 2 years, it seems like that all those tariffs have been divided up under departments, and we need to get back to one book where we have all the tariffs in one place. And I don't think that's been done yet. I'm hoping that with the new finance director, we can gather all those, and it should include the sections of the code from the garbage, and then also, you know, that graph of what the rates are.
And
Go ahead.
If I may just piggyback off of that, and I don't know if this is a proper time, but we have consumer price index means, and it's got a definition here. But our consumer price index definition for our sewer is something completely different. And it's probably something different for our leases as well. So it's just something maybe for all of us to be mindful of when we're talking about consumer price index, to really investigate exactly what that means, because one is much different than another. It'd be cool to get them all on the same page, but again, just trying to make all of this.
Well, I believe our other rates are an average over 3 years. Isn't that
Yeah.
how we do it? Yeah. This contract will be different then. Any other questions before we call for a vote? Madam Clerk?
Voting on the approval of resolution 2021-084. Osenga,
Yes.
McClure,
Yes.
Casagranda,
Yes.
Demas,
Yes.
Cease,
Yes.
Bachlan,
Yes.
Mayor Terry.
Yes.
That resolution is approved.
Thank you. Now we're down to other new business. Approval of the July 26, 2021 City Council regular meeting minutes. If I could get a motion in a second.
I move for the approval of the July 26, 2021 City Council regular meeting minutes.
I'll second it.
So folks could turn to page 177. I just noticed it tonight when I was looking something else up, but under Ordinance 2021-006, the motion was made by Bachlan and McClure, that's correct, but it wasn't to enact the ordinance, it was intro the ordinance. So I'll go ahead and make a motion to strike enact and change that to intro, and I'll look for a second.
I'll second.
And then I kind of led into that with my discussion. If there's no comments or discussion, I'll just call for a vote.
Voting on that amendment, Cease,
Yes.
Casagranda,
Yes.
Bachlan,
Yes.
Demas,
Yes.
McClure,
Yes.
Osenga,
Yes.
Mayor Terry.
Yes.
That amendment is approved.
Thank you, and I think we're just ready for a vote on the main motion to approve the minutes.
Okay, voting to approve the July 26 minutes, Demas,
Yes.
Cease,
Yes.
McClure,
Yes.
Osenga,
Yes.
Bachlan,
Yes.
Casagranda,
Yes.
Mayor Terry.
Yes.
That motion is approved.
Thank you. Informational items and reports, we have none. Citizen comments. There's no sign-in for this comment period. Time is limited to 5 minutes per speaker. Is there anyone wishing to make comments? Go ahead, Mr. McDonough.
Thank you. Inside the city limits. I was just reading about the wastewater and what they're doing. And the thing about it is, assuming that my hypothesis is correct, that there's a lot of chemicals in the water, a lot of personal care products. Remember, we are recovering sewage from a lot more than just ourselves. Like I said, all the porta potties, all the RVs dumping down there, all that goes into our sewer system, a lot of RVs. So, we are the general population of Alaska and the visitors that come here. And my guess is that eventually the answer is what we need is a closed loop sewer system. In other words, everybody's looking at it as a problem to get rid of. Remember when they put the heat pumps in here, which now heat these buildings and the building across the street down in the thing? They do that by a slight reduction in the temperature of the water from the water that they pump out. What they do through it goes through, I don't understand the process completely, but it's the same thing as a radiator basically. You're using a different format to transfer that heat energy. And it heats these 4 buildings. Well, That sewage is the same thing. That stuff's hot. There's a lot of energy in that, just the thermal energy. The chemical energy also. You can, phosphorus and nitrogen are the big things that you get out of there. And I know everybody's poo-pooing this and thinking we're not on a big enough scale, but we're looking ahead, and even at a small scale like it is, it's not that small, and we don't want to be putting it in the bay. So, you can reduce it down, like I said, thermal energy, stuff like that. You can get a net energy back. There's all kinds of things, like if they put a cap on that 4-acre pond and turn it into a sign gas factory, you can turn that, you can burn that stuff in your car. It'll replace gasoline. Just to give you an idea, they're estimating, depending on how efficient you are, that's 3.86 to 8.8 kilowatt hours per kilogram, which comes out to in a gallon to be somewhere between 14 kilowatt hours to 18 kilowatt hours of energy, i.e. electricity, per gallon of, this is wastewater, this is not dry sewage, that's just the wastewater. So there's huge amounts of energy in it, and that's why it's bad to dump it on the fish. It's no different than, dumping oil in there. I mean, it's a different diluted form, but it's a pollutant. You're changing the environment. You're putting lots of phosphorus and nitrogen in there, which, they're fertilizers, and you can pull those out of there and do it too. And you can't do it all, but I've been reading about it. There's a lot of these systems are coming up with the most efficient ones. We're not the first one. We don't have to invent the wheel on this. But the main thing is we want a clean process for ourselves and to protect the bay for future generations. 100 years from now, we should still be getting salmon in there, and the way things are going, they're not looking good for most of the world, and we can't think that we're isolated. It's not going to happen to us. Everybody knows what's going on with all the extreme heat and all over the world, not just in the Midwest or California, but everywhere that has hot weather has super hot weather. So it all ties into it. We've got to do our part to keep our house in order. That's what I think. And I've been studying this a lot. I don't know all the answers, but I know a lot about it. And if anybody has any questions, I'll take a whack at them.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else? Oh, I thought you were done. We'd have to suspend the rules to ask you questions, so you can.
Oh, I'm done.
Okay, yeah. Thank you so much, sir.
Okay.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak?
Well, did anybody want? Oh, did anybody want?
No, we'll have to. We'll have to
I
suspend.
got you.
Yes. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kurt Broning. I once again still live outside the city limits, representing Alaska Waste. There's been a lot of conversation tonight about the 140% of CPI. Ms. Casagrande alluded to that. The reality is there are many different kinds of CPIs. The contract specifically refers to the Anchorage or the Alaska Urban CPI, which is based out of Anchorage. And quite frankly, it's 140% of that particular CPI just due to the cost of doing business in sewer as opposed to doing business in Anchorage. So as the CPI rises and falls, our pricing structure will rise and fall along with that. So it's not just a straight increase every year. For instance, in 2022, residents of sewer actually would see a slight reduction in the rates based on that, where the CPI is currently -1. So, it will rise and fall based on that Anchorage CPI. So, yeah.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wishing to speak? Go ahead.
Pat Messner, outside Seattle. So I just wanted to say thank you guys.
I got one more minute. It says right here 5 minutes and 1 minute.
Okay, go ahead.
Here you go. Right there, clerk. I get 1 more minute to speak.
That's for a public hearing item.
That's for a public hearing item. We're on.
Doesn't say that. It says public hearing. This is a public hearing, isn't it?
Yeah, time is limited to 5 minutes per speaker. That's why I asked you if you were done. Was there minutes left?
It's up to you.
Go ahead. How many minutes did you have left when you said you were done?
Thank you, Mayor.
How many minutes did you have? We'll start the timer again.
Just one.
Okay.
Just one's on. This is a little critique. 1.8 million for the animal shelter, 300,000 for the sidewalk. There's a big double standard. The private sector is doing these same jobs or 25% of what your guys are doing. Why? You can't have a gold standard for government and then a different standard for everybody else. We all need to be on the same standard, and that's what makes everybody really mad at government. Because you spend so much money when we know it doesn't cost that much. Why are we doing that? Why does it cost $1.8 million for the animal shelter? Why does it cost $300,000 to repair that sidewalk? We're not putting in a new sidewalk, we're repairing it. What's going on? Somebody get a grip on this. That's what's making everybody mad.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is council administration comments in response to citizen comments. I'll start off with administration.
I didn't have anything further, thank you.
Let's start on this side of the dais today.
I wanted to say congrats to Stefan in the building department for his retirement. He was a pleasure to work with, just personally over all the years. I thought he was amazing, so I just hope that he has a nice retirement or whatever he plans on doing. And I wanted to say thank you again for sending me to AML. I had a really nice time. That's it.
Councilmember Casgrande.
I'd like to thank the citizens for coming and speaking. Your voices are always heard and very important. Thank you, Councilmember DeMoss, for going to AML and giving such an amazing report. And I'm really looking forward to speaking further on not only how we can better regulate short-term lodging, but also how we as a city can better support short-term lodging, and how we as a city can maybe start focusing on businesses in general instead of having all of our focus just particularly on short-term lodging. I think in the end, short-term lodging will probably benefit from the focus, and then the ball's gonna turn and there could be businesses that feel like they're being left out because they're not part of short-term lodging. So it's just really important that we keep abroad when we're looking at one thing. What's good for the goose is good for the gander.
Councilmember Cease.
Well, it's not a lot, but I just heard today that Stefan retired and is going to go to Avtech. And I'm disappointed, but I'm happy for him. I thought he was a very nice person to work with all these years. And thank you for going to AML and the nice report. And also I'd like to thank the attorney. I think that we've gotten a good attorney this time, and I think all of us have been pleased. And also thank Kurt for explaining the 140%. Thank you.
Councilmember Alexander.
I'd like to also say good luck to Stefan on his new adventure in life. I would also like to just say please be COVID aware, social distance, facial coverings in public, and wash your hands often, and just be safe out there. Thank you.
Councilmember McClure.
Well, I'm really happy that we're working on some sidewalks because I'm still in pain and from a sidewalk, and I'm hoping to expand where we're fixing them in the near future. I had a really neat thing this week, and I want to share because I don't think it's publicized enough, but we have the Pop-Up Children's Museum, and it's in the Temple Studios building. It is amazing. I've got a 4.5-year-old grandson, and we spent a couple hours all 3 days they were open this week in there. He did, and I think it kind of misses there's a lot of historical information for little guys that don't read yet, you know, but the hands-on activities are really something, and I don't think the people there would mind if you just came in and peeked in and saw what they had. It's just through August, and they're hoping to extend it more, but it's just really neat. So if anybody's listening with little kids, it's a good thing. They're Thursday, Friday, and Saturdays. They're open, and definitely an asset. And on a sort of a negative note, I would really like to have our Borough Assembly member come and give us a report, because I've been asking for that for several months now, and as a former Borough Assembly representative, I was here for every meeting and telling what was going on. And anyway, I'm really disappointed because there were a whole list of questions that I had, and I think it's become up to us now to follow the meetings ourselves, and you know, that's just not right. So that's all I got.
Thank you. Vice Mayor?
First of all, I'd like to say thank you for Tim and your comments. I think it's very important that when we talked about the lagoon for a long time, that and any of the things that we talk about, that we're looking towards the future and improving things, not kind of maintaining them to where they are. I think that innovation and technology is things that we should take advantage of, and that we should be looking more towards those things in bettering our systems that we have, rather than kind of just patching it up. I feel like has been for a long time. And I think the new administration is doing a good job of that, especially looking now to the project that we have working with the electric department. So I'd like to thank them for that as well. But anytime that the citizens come and speak on those things, I think that's one of the times that we really should be listening and broadening our horizons on different solutions that may be out there. I wanted to thank administration as well, especially Clerk Ballou, Mayor Terry, the electric department, the fire department, the police department for an amazing parade for Lydia, and the police department. The administration pulled off an amazing feat with the help of the mayor and Clerk Ballou, and it was just a beautiful day and the most perfect scene for anything that could have happened. And I was lucky to share that day with the mayor and Councilmember Casagrande, and just to see one thing that Seward can be absolutely 100% proud of. There's nobody who's disappointed about that at all. Was just so cool. And there was a little bit of technical difficulties, and Wolf pulled it together with your phone, and I was like, these people are just standing here, they're just enjoying everything, and they're just enjoying being here with the community, and it was just beautiful and amazing. So thank you to everyone who helped put that together. Vaccines are still available at the clinic. Please consider getting a vaccine so we can move forward and repair our economy, get people back to work, and save potential lives. I wanted to thank administration for their work on the tsunami evacuation and setting up all of those things. I know of a lot of seasonal people who ended up at the gym, so that's one of the things that Swift Action showed, that work that can help people and comfort people and have a safe place for them to go. So thank you for doing a great job on that. Thank you to Councilmember DeMoss and our city manager and assistant city manager for representing us at AML. I think the AML conferences are very important to us to build networking with other cities, to sharing information, gathering information, and building alliances in communication and contacts that we can share to better our city. I want to thank Councilmember Casagrande for at least trying to update the title. I understand, I think now, where she was coming from with that, because we seem to have fees and we have other things, and we go, why is this fee this much? Why is that fee that much? Which I agree that the tariffs should all be in one place so that we can know and see why things are based on what they are based on. Not just because somebody said, oh, this should be a $100 fee, or this should be a $500 fee. And if we do have those fees and are implementing them, that we're not putting people out of business or hindering business in any way, or for people not to become non-compliant at that point. Congratulations to the employees on their new contract for this year. Thank you for administration with their work on that. And I think that the one-year term was a good thing, coming into having a second budget for the next coming year. And thank you to all the businesses in the Seward Pride Alliance for having Pride. We had a great celebration and amazing, wonderful stories. And that's all I have to share. Thank you.
Thank you. I am just going to jump on that and talk about just that amazing community event that we had on Thursday. And the problem with starting with thank yous is I'm going to forget someone, but I want to at least get some people out there. So that Tsunami Swim Club really led the charge on what that was going to look like, coordinated with Lydia's parents. And so all the parents and the kids put a lot of thought into that. And that Tsunami Swim Club also did a great job with all the watch parties. So that is a fantastic organization. I want to make sure that Alaska and GCI both get thanked for their work. Wolf Kurtz and the radio station get thanked. KFT for providing that vessel. Petro Marine, City of Seward, again, the fire department, police department, acting city manager, Rob Montgomery, the electric department, Parks and Rec, clerks, building department. I don't know that, community development was out there. I don't know that there was one city employee that didn't help. So it's just really, I mean, the harbor guys, went and picked up some things, Public Works was out there. So just really helpful to know that, that Tsunami Swim Club had a vision with that family, and then the city definitely stepped in and supported that vision. And my personal thanks to Governor Dunleavy, who, arranged his schedule to attend. Peter Machicki had many things going on that day also, and made it a priority to attend. And then Representative Ben Carpenter, and then our borough assemblyman was there. And I do know that we had council members watching the parade, and interacting with folks also. So, and above and beyond, I just want to thank the Jacoby family and Lydia herself for I think everyone rallied around her, and it was such a special gift for her to be giving of herself even more for this community. I want to thank the city attorney for this year. I think it's been very well received, and I just feel like this council is building a great team with a great city manager, assistant city manager, and a great attorney, city clerk. It's nice to have professionals that we can work with that give us good advice all the time. Oh, I forgot. Thank you to the high school, and thank you to all the swim coaches. That goes back to my first comment. And then, again, I am a supporter of vaccine. I think I do know people that have gotten sick with the vaccine, but they haven't ended up in the hospital. So we're still providing free vaccines in this community. And then even this evening, we are just being conscious of the health of our friends and neighbors and doing some social distancing, so I'm glad to see that. So with that, I am going to adjourn the meeting at 8:46. Sue, what time?